Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the latest edition of Free Enterprise, the Eblan Elixir League. We have a Week 5 matchup here between It's Spelled Aerith of the Time Zones R Us team and Kryspyslick of Big Trouble Little Kaipo. My name is Possum Morpheus, and I am joined in the booth by the one, the only Blue Wizard. Blue, how you doing this afternoon?
Doing pretty good. Caffeine is hitting just right, and I'm actually pretty excited to see a run here this evening. A very fine race between a fairly recent addition to the Pink Puff League and a runner who has just recently come back. So it's exciting to see, fresh faces, new faces, all the faces running.
Yeah, the more faces, the merrier. I'm sure that's how that saying goes.
Yeah, of
Might be
course.
mixing a couple up, but whatever. Yeah, we got some Moonveil Mixer, and speaking of mixing things up, Moonveil Mixer, interesting little flag set. Basically taking the last 5 combined and putting them all in a blender and seeing what comes out. I, for one, am happy to see a Sid pop out. Sid, to me, the best hero, with the C Hero flag being on. Your thoughts, Blue?
My thoughts, we talk about mixing up all of the flag sets from previous tournaments. I personally like my flag sets pureed. Some people like it a little chunky, but as long as it's smooth, it works. But with the Sid, I'm debating on which forge item I want to see. If I want Fiery Hammer or the Thor Hammer. I personally want the Thor Hammer. What about you?
I am a Fiery Hammer guy. I like the concept of Sid getting a Crystal Sword. Second to that, I like the Gigant Axe. That way you have a Crystal Sword for 3 different people, Sid, Kane, and Cecil. And to me, the Thor Hammer's third, but you know what? That's an electric-based or a lit-based Excal, basically, for Sid. And it's a pretty big jump up from an Earth Hammer or even an Artemis Bow, Artemis Arrow. So any of those forges are quite nice for old Sid there.
Yep. And with a blip on the screen, I think we are off to the races. As our runners are ready to face whatever challenges are ahead of them.
Yeah, it looks like we have what I would consider probably the best secondary character to join your hero. There is never a bad time to have a Rosa show up. We also get a Tower Key, and we have a Leviathan. So no objectives popping out right away, but Tower Key's nice. You can make a little bit of a splash immediately getting after Underground with that. But speaking of those objectives, tonight we have the 4 regulars, Cave Magnus, Forge, Babul Gauntlet, and Golbez, and then our 3 additionals are Baron Castle, the Liberation, not the basement, the Sealed Cave, so Warp Glitch is less important than normal, and completing the Giant of Babel. That is always a fun one.
Yep, and even though one of the objectives is not to complete the lower portion of Baron Castle, Odin will still have the chance to yield a key item.
Yep, that is true. Case Summon is back on the table now after taking a couple of weeks off with the Potion Party flag set, which was the first 4 weeks of the Eblan Elixir League. So definitely nice to see the Case Summon and K Moonspots return, adding a very different flavor. And speaking of different flavors, our runners have decided to go 2 different places. It's spelled Aerith, going to Watery Pass, and Kryspyslick heading to Baron, taking a look at the character there. We did see a second White Mage, a Porum there. So we already have Rosa, Porum less important, but early exit, earlier Berserk, never a bad thing.
Nope, definitely not. And we all know that Sid is a bit on the slower side of things, so having characters who are able to move a little bit more quickly than them, and Rosa having that versatility for damage and healing is definitely nice, because if you need to swap for a little bit more healing or a little bit more damage, you have those options available.
Yeah, flexibility is kind of the name of the game. This flag set's a very intriguing one. To me, this is a very powerful start. a Sid, especially both runners finding an Ogreax, a Rosa. That's just a very strong start in general for this flag set. Much different than, say, your Eddie Tella Rydia or, Eddie Double Tella starts. And, probably less powerful than something like an Edge Kane start. But overall, I think this is on the higher end of power and has some good late game potential as well. So definitely, if I'm our runners, I'm very happy with this start.
Definitely. And, finding a two-handed weapon this early on is just going to be a massive, massive advantage. And we see on Kryspyslick's side a resting Kane in the Kaipo bed. So, if that forge ends up being something like a Gigant Axe, I believe Kane can actually go ahead and use that.
That is true. Kane, Cecil, and Sid can all use a Gigant Axe. So that is one of the three big hitters, if you will, that can take advantage of those Sid Sea Hero weapons out of the forge. It spelled Aerith, meanwhile, went up to Hobbs, saw some Dark Imps, got a required boss here, also saw an Edward. It spelled Aerith, said, I would rather do anything else than put my time into getting an Edward. Now, I'll have you know, Edward with a spoon, especially with adamant armors on, that is a real lad right there, and he will hit things and be able to take a punch. That being said, we're a spoon and an adamant armor shy of Eddie being viable.
Yep, and then we see Kryspyslick picking up one of my favorite party members from a treasure chest, the formidable sixth party member, Dancing Dagger.
Yeah, Dancing Dagger could make that Edward viable, but an Ogreax on Sid, I think I'd be on Aerith's side on this one, that until we need that Eddie, I think I would just roll Ogreax Sid for this one.
Oh, most definitely. It spelled Aerith taking out that Bahamut really quick and picking up an Earth Crystal. Oh, Earth Crystal.
Yeah, Earth Crystal's super spicy on this flag set for so many reasons. Blue Eye, I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to let you tell me your reasons first, and then I'll hop in and see if mine are any different.
Well, there are a few reasons. I mean, neither of our runners have yet to see a demist, which will go ahead and potentially yield a key item. There's 2 boss checks in the Tower of Zot, the Treasury, and also 2 character checks. So, even if you don't get anything out of that Treasury, it's still a lot of cash money.
Yeah, so that's basically everything that you covered. There's one minor thing I would add, and it's that it's 2 gated character checks. Gated character checks, incredibly important on this flag set because of Cecil and making his long return, Fusoya. So if you have a chance to add either of those characters to your party, that is a severe advantage that you have over your opponent generally. The earlier you get them, the more impactful they are.
Agreed. And honestly, for as much as I love Cecil and I love to see Cecil go burr, for what characters we've seen so far, I personally would like to go with Fusoya, because Fusoya with an adamant armor is fantastic. Fusoya without an adamant armor is just as good. But most importantly, having a Fusoya in the party allows access to exit and warp. More specifically, warp, because we don't have a black mage in the party yet.
Yeah, it's a very good point. That warp is always fantastic. But as far as that's concerned, warp is probably the least important thing for our runners to be truly worried about right now. Again, because the sealed cave is an objective. Sure, it's going to be super nice to get that, but I really don't think it's one of those things that our runners should be truly heavily concerned about because sealed cave is an objective. So, I don't want to overstate it, but at the same time, I think it needs to be put into play there that with that being an objective, you may very well see folks go to dwarf as soon as they get underground, even without a warp. I think still the chance of getting a Fu, even if he doesn't have warp, or getting a Cecil, is just too important to pass up, even if it's at the expense of missing out on a warp glitch.
Agreed. And, honestly, I say that with the context of it's solely dependent on party composition and who's sitting in Sealed Cave, because if memory serves, Sealed Cave is either the fastest spot or one of the top fastest spots in the game.
It is tied with the Asura spot. It is slightly slower than the Element spot in Zeromus. Yeah, it's spooky. Speaking of spooky, Odin at Baron in 2. Not what you want to see. Odin, scary there. Aerith does take a wipe, unfortunately. So no Porum right now, probably, for either of our runners. Might go play and, pick up some things out of Zot. Maybe find like a black belt, a bandana, a strength ring, maybe a rune axe, maybe some lit arrows, a heroine robe for Rosa. Something to help us get through that Baron check. Odin could gate our underground access. So our runners are definitely going to want to be able to get through that in some way. Kryspyslick, meanwhile, did find an Earth Hammer just laying in Antlion Cave. That's actually quite a big deal. Earth Hammer providing some AoE that our runners would not otherwise have.
Yep, and even just having that knowledge of where Odin is going to be beneficial for when you go ahead and try to approach it later on. Pick up your party members, go to the Trojan Treasury, and just kind of come back later on and try it again.
Yeah, now we get to play everybody's favorite game, Rate That Treasury, back and, not better than ever, but back and it exists. Honestly, not a lot there for this party. Radio would make a huge splash, pun intended, with the Leviathan Orb that was picked up, and a Tiara. That was kind of not this party out of 10, unfortunately, for our runners.
So what you're saying is cash money out of 10.
Yes, we can now buy things out of 10. Potion party out of 10. Not this flag set, not this party out of 10.
And speaking of this party out of 10, we see Kryspyslick going to do defend Babel with Mr. Googly Eyes himself, not on the moon.
Yeah, apparently the odds would state that there's something like a 16% chance for Antlion to be on the moon, but I tell you what, it feels a whole lot more than that. Also worth noting, vampires in shops, that could really help expedite things. Will also help potentially with the Odin at Baron in 2. Kryspyslick, though, dealing big damage. The Sid is hitting harder than Aerith for sure. So I'm not certain what our equipment difference is, but I think that was an 800 damage hit, which is substantially more than Aerith's was doing.
Yeah, I think I saw on Crispy's side, Crispy having a headband. And equipping that strength ring, so that's gonna definitely go ahead and help some of those higher rolls deal just a little bit more damage.
Yeah, for sure. Any bit of strength or agility gear you can put on Sid early on and raise those multipliers, because he has access to such a wide variety of weaponry early. His big weaknesses are just he doesn't have the multipliers. Every 8 strength, every 16 agility helps him basically hit harder. So that headband plus 5, strength ring plus 5, that gives him an extra multiplier, possibly 2, depending on how his strength stat lands. So yeah, that would make a lot of difference and will only help Kryspyslick going forward.
Yep, and we see Aerith getting into that fight with the Antlion. The vampire's definitely gonna pay off in this fight.
Yeah, J items being back, I'm sure, is a welcome thing for the runners. In Potion Party, they were not around. So, not that they would have done a ton against most of the bosses, since there were no free bosses, and now those are back. But having access to things like vampires, when we found literally nothing for Rosa, and, Sid still needs a little bit of help. Those vampires are going to make things a lot easier, plus providing substantial healing. That 500 to 700 healing that you get, that makes a world of difference when your characters have 300 to 500 health in a lot of cases. Also, we see a rat tail. Both runners have now from Babel Defense. Aerith, we'll see if they go back to the Baron Inn check, or if they follow Kryspyslick up Mount Ordeals.
Only time will tell. Stay tuned for Free Enterprise. All right, and in that first slot on Ordeals, we have the queen herself, Asira.
Yeah, if Kryspyslick knows life locking, this is a great time to use to do life lock strats. My assumption is he does not. Reason being, we're seeing the double Star Veil trick. That is what I would consider the secondary usage or the secondary strat against Asura here. Just because Star Veils are really important as an item. Golbez is out there and is required, so you want to be a little less liberal with your Star Veils if possible. Now, in order to do the lifelock strat that we were talking about, if our runners wanted to do that, whenever the gray face comes up and casts Life 1, you immediately hit Asura after, and it locks in place on that life spell, and you can just do that over and over again. So just a little knowledge tip for those out there who may be getting into Free Enterprise. I know a lot of folks have just gotten into it with this tournament. So that's a nice little tip you can put into play on your own seats.
And additionally, fun fact is you don't always have to do double Star Veil. You can do something like Wall and then Star Veil, where you don't necessarily need the Star Veil effect to last very long on the person you're bouncing it off of, but you do on the target. So you could just drop a wall, pop a Star Veil, and still get desired effects.
Yep. And
All right,
it does look like... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, Kryspyslick taking out that Asura like it ain't no thing, and Aerith taking out or making another attempt on Odin. I don't know. I'm a little rusty on my thunder striking, but how well do you think Thunderstruck strats will work here?
0. Because, well, but if you're just going to summon Indra and wipe out Odin that way, A+ Aerith. May the 4th be with you, my friend. So, yeah, that was a fantastic usage of pure runner skill there, summoning the correct, most, optimal summon out of the Grimoire. So, again, A+ by Aerith. But yeah, that is not a thunderstruckable spot because you have a 2800 damage Odin pops out there. So shy of Kane jumping or Eddie hiding, you are not going to do face tankter strats. Face tankter struck, man, that's really hard to say. Anyway, don't face tank the Odin there. It's bad.
You can, pace take Odin from above, but that's neither here nor there at this point. Kryspyslick getting past that Kaipo guard officer spot, which a lot of us who are either doing practice seats or just trying out Moonveil Mixer for the first time tend to maybe forget that free bosses are back on, which means that if you have things like Fatal or Coffins, Stone, anything that can afflict debuffs can now be applied to those such bosses.
Yeah, Hourglasses and Coffins being the big ones, of course. But yeah, Fatal, Stone, Toad, Size, Charm, any of those are back in play now. And Ordeals giving us a hook. That Rat Tail going to be turned in fairly quickly by our runners, I would imagine, and it's spelled Aerith. They are giving us a look at what happens when you use a Siren. Siren pulls the rarest encounter from whatever's on the encounter table where you are, but this is a play to get some XP on Porum to try to get to Exit and Berserk. Really a big fan of the Ordeals grind if you have the Sirens. Kryspyslick, meanwhile, showing Plague who's boss in the Ordeals changing room. And honestly, that can be a scary place to find Plague if you have a character that can't dish out a ton of damage. Thankfully, this Sid can and is able to get through it.
Yep, and and almost, well, I say almost any boss is relatively easy potentially at that spot. Given that the changing room only has 1,000 HP. I think the only one of the only main scary bosses from an HP perspective in that spot that's dangerous is Mom Bomb, due to the 10,000 health barrier that she gets between forms and transition.
Incidentally, Odin is actually kind of scary there if we can't kill it too. For whatever reason, Odin's magic stat gets pushed up quite a bit there, and Odin will hit for about 1,400 there. Pretty much everybody dies to that if it goes off. It's a really weird one. It doesn't make much sense because the magic at that spot is inherently low, but Odin's gets cranked. Don't know why, but it happens, and then you die.
Because it's a finely tuned feature of the game.
Yes, features, always features.
Exactly. We see Kryspyslick going to grab that hovercraft to, as you mentioned, Possum, pick up the hovercraft to go ahead and turn in the rat tail for who knows what.
I am going to say it's going to be the pink tail, and we're going to get an adamant armor, and all is going to be good for the runners.
Yep. You know, and actually a question from me pops up, because I ran a Moonveil mixer, so I can feel like I know what I'm talking about here. I got the Forge last night. I got the Thor hammer, but we also know now with the Moonveil mixer seed that cursed rings are back in play, and with the hero on, we can actually go ahead and do better anchoring situations. What might our runners, do in such a scenario where they get the Forge and a cursed ring? Do you curse ring and anchor, or do you just let Sid hit things?
Well, I think regardless of what you end up long term with Sid, it's going to pan out just fine, much like that rat tail did. The situation with cursed rings, and especially with Sid, is that his strength stat in particular, it scales basically like no one else, but maybe Yang in the game. But Sid his strength stat, up, and away. So even if you take out 15 from all his stats with a cursed ring, which makes his agility super slow, makes everyone super fast, and we're not going to get into it much more than that, his strength stat is still such that he is going to hit like a Mac Pro with any of those weapons. So even a slow Sid, what we would call relative agility 5, which would be, your anchor for your party, he's still going to hit really flippin' hard. The nice part about it is if you have like a Cecil or an Edge or anybody else like that, they're going to be quite fast. So you have a very hard-hitting Sid, and you would have other fast folks. Additionally, you can even have the Sid have a curse ring on and let mages go to town, because he's slow enough to make them viable as well. Also, coffins, sirens, and most importantly, carrots in the hook shot. That is an 11 out of 10 shot.
Yeah, the Eblan shops here looking better than the Trojan Treasury.
No joke. And I mean, Thork robes, black belts, ninja hats as well.
Man, Eblan's been holding out on us. Next thing you'll tell me that the Staleman chest down here has a crystal sword.
I mean, completely irrelevant if Cecil's not on this hook route, but sure.
Well, the crystal sword will sell for money that we can come back to Eblan and pick up the things we want.
I am curious for our runners, who takes the dive first, and I guess it would be not a dive, but a bounce, and flies up the Tower of Zot with 2 gated character checks. That to me is the most interesting part of this right now, is who's going to pull the proverbial trigger, words are hard, y'all, and head up that tower and see who those gated characters are. Will this hook character disincentivize them from doing it? I think not. A sparkle on a hook route and a small child Rydia. Now, we do have Leviathan, a tiara, charm rods were for sale, so this Rydia can get kitted out something fierce. But a sparkle could be like Ogo Pogo. He doesn't do much with that. I really want to go check some of those other characters that are available.
Yeah, I mean, well, considering that sparkle, the only one we've seen so far has been Plague. And so that still leaves on the table D-Lunars, Ogo, like you mentioned, Wyvern.
Yeah, I live in a world where I always think it's going to be the worst possible thing, which would be exactly Ogopogo. So I would be planning, what if it is Ogopogo? That would be going through my mind that yes, I could get through D-Lunar. Yes, I could probably get through Pale Dim, although Leviathan on a Pale Dim is also an experience that you may not want to have, since it will counter with Quake, and that's not ideal.
Yep.
Can't be Wyvern, but it's one of those situations where if it's Ogo, you best be prepared for it. Speaking of preparation, looks like Aerith had to redo this officer-soldier fight because Plague decided to eat Sid before Sid was able to kill Plague. So, unfortunately, not quite enough preparation on Aerith's side to get through that first try. So Crispy is building a little bit of an advantage right now. Some through that more well-equipped Sid, and some through actually having that Edward and Dancing Dagger.
Yep, and seeing the sparkle on the hook route, and just picking up that Rydia. I mean, and with having Leviathan and all of this gear for Rydia, do you go and maybe try to pop a siren, do a little leveling beforehand, or do you just maybe do something like the Eblan trap chest?
Yeah, I would look at Eblan, specifically trying to find not the Staleman and 4 skeleton fight. I would want to try to find the Black Cat Lamia fight or the Mad Ogre fight, because those can be coffined. So if you just buy 6 coffins and specifically hunt out those 2 fights, then leave Eblan, take a tent or a cabin, get Rydia to the point where she can then Leviathan, she can take care of that other one. So I would look to do full Eblan here to get that Rydia going. That would be my big plan. Stalemen are doing their best to try to claim another runner. These are the worst enemies in the game when you're trying to take them early. And Kryspyslick needs to not have exactly that happen. Ripperoni.
But he was not far from taking out that Staleman chest first bench try. Yeah, those Stalemen particularly nasty because they are not ones to shy away from putting you to sleep and ruining your day.
Yeah, they also can't be coffined. So it's kind of awkward that we were given the tools to take out literally everything other than the Staleman. The Ogre Axe, we just don't have enough multipliers to one-shot. So, yeah, best to skip them for right now.
Yeah, and while they can't be coffined, I believe they can actually be stoned.
They sure can. Yep, they can be stoned. They can't be coffined. Why a Staleman or a thing that looks like a giant stone can be stoned, I don't know. We'll go with feature, not bug.
You know why? I know why. It's because they rock.
Silent approval.
Yep, I'm here for it. Aerith going back to Damascene to raise the hovercraft to go ahead and get their rat tail turned in, I imagine, while Kryspyslick selling off some of that sweet loot to go ahead and get a little bit more defense and a little bit more firepower. Kind of wondering if he is going to pick up some of the Eblan looting, or yep, looks like it.
Yeah, I'm thinking that I'd like to see Eblan into Zot from our runners. I think that would be the safe route through. But we might also just decide, hey, I would like to go and do Zot and just carry on and be done with it. Kryspyslick is flying north. We are going to Baron. Yes, Kryspyslick yet to do Baron, I believe. Does not have that Porum yet. So right now, Kryspyslick is up the hook dive to find out the character and do some shopping. Aerith is up the Baron in chat. So both runners fairly close. I still think Kryspyslick has a very small early lead, but it is marginal at best. Still so much seed to do.
Agreed. And, I don't blame either of our runners for not doing Eblan Trap. With the current party members, there's not as much incentive to do it, I don't think. I mean, other than, picking up items potentially worth money. Yeah, I mean, you just don't see it with a party comp such as this.
Yeah, I would want Leviathan Rydia online. And I would want Berserk. Maybe Blink, but more just Berserk on the mages. Sid is okay when he's not Zerk, but he's a whole heck of a lot better when he's just going. So I think for those reasons, I'd like to find some XP somewhere, whether it be the Mad Ogre chest, whether it be Eblan. I would want something to help me get through Zop. We have some vampires, we have some grimoires, but I think like the magic number for me would be like 6 coffins here, because I would just throw them on 2 Eblan trap chests, carry on, and you never know. There could always be an adamant armor chilling in Eblan.
There could be, because is it max tier 7 or 8 for the trap chest?
Trap chests are always going to be a max tier of 8. The untrapped loot is going to be max tier of 5. But one of the other interesting things about those Eblan trap chests is they are very heavily weighted. So you have something like a 35 or 38% chance of getting a tier 8 item out of there. Now for this party, only one tier 8 item, which would be an adamant armor, can be used. But if you hit a crystal sword or hit an X-Cal, that just incentivizes you to go and find the Cecil. You can also get a number of other good items. Artemis arrows can pop out of there at tier 7. Avenger swords. Not that we have anyone who can use them yet, but again, would be a nice thing for future considerations. White shirts, crystal rings at tier 6. Lots of good stuff could show up. So, you know, I would still be interested in our runners going there. Totally respect the decision if they just want to, let's say, jettison up Saw.
Yep, because for every decision they make, there's some fuel behind it.
Mm-hmm. And there's no wrong decisions. There may be decisions that don't work out on a particular seed you play, but there's no wrong.
Exactly. We see Kryspyslick, yep, doing that Eblan chest checking. Aerith picking up their Rydia to go and learn Leviathan, and maybe follow in the steps of Kryspyslick, doing those Eblan trap chests. And you know, in the worst case scenario, after doing Eblan, you just have a bunch of money to go shopping back at Eblan shops for.
Well, for me, the worst case scenario is you get 3 zonks on your items, and you just all of a sudden have a bunch of levels.
Exactly. Yep. I mean, it's still
that's not a bad thing. Like, yes, it costs a little bit of time, but Lord knows you ain't taking this party down the hook route right now. Like,
nope.
This is not a tenable situation. Maybe Aerith is. That would be a choice. This could just be a Mad Ogre play. Maybe this is a full hook play, but this is
that is a gamble. This is
a full hook route play. This is a full-on gamble from Aerith. Maybe thinking, I wiped 2 plague. I'm behind. I need to do something spicy. Has 11 coffins, which is a number of coffins that exists. So definitely going to have enough to get through them. We have 10 coffins on Kryspyslick's side. So both runners, definitely have a number of coffins available at their disposal for trap chests, for free bosses, and for the Porum in their party.
Yep, and I mean, you mentioned that your magic number for coffin pickup is 6. Being in Aerith's shoes right now, I would imagine that they want to have a few extras to maybe try and make up a little bit of time for, like if some particularly nasty, quote-unquote, free bosses happen to pop up in those spots, like Baron Guards happen to pop up, and you just hit them with a coffin. Saves you a ton of time.
Yeah, it's worth noting that the Kaipo guards were on Ordeals, and the Dark Imps, I believe, were our starting boss. So that only leaves the Baron guards that we're truly considering for. So if you figure in like 6 or so coffins for trap chests, you really only need 2 additional. So our runners actually have a surplus of coffins. There's a tier 8 item from Eblan. We get an X-Cal on Kryspyslick's side. So not what he was looking for, but get some good XP for the team, and curing up, so I don't think he's leaving either. Aerith gets through the Mad Ogres, gets quite a few levels on Rydia there, and gets an Avenger. So that is another of the items that we were talking about. This is the awkward fight for Kryspyslick. There is nothing that's going to really do anything here. So he's going to use an elixir and see if Rydia can welcome the Stale Man to the car wash and have some success there. This Leviathan needs to go off, or this could be a very unfortunate wipe on Crispy's side.
Yep. I mean, it's either rain on their parade or get rained on.
Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, those skulls, they will cast lightning late enough into their script. So you may be making a rain joke, but they will bring a full thunderstorm.
Yeah, it's because they're over here just being led. It's okay.
Now Leviathan does get off. That's at least going to take out 4/5 of this fight. Staleman also going out, Leviathan doing more than enough. So that's the tough fight that Kryspyslick was going to run into. So happy for him to get through that one.
Very much. And a protect ring. Yeah. It's still defense. It's still defense.
Yeah, it gives some elemental resistance. Yeah, you just about nailed it. Meanwhile, on Aerith's side, spicy stuff going on here. No Zot before Hook Route. No Cecil, no Fu. Okay, so this could be our Magma Key. Also, this D-Mist is going to hurt. This is not a nice D-Mist.
Yeah, that's the type of D-Mist fight where, it's good that you have Blink on Rosa. It's gonna be a few. But because Rydia has Leviathan, if you time it right, this fight will actually be a lot shorter. And, keep her from dying.
Yeah, the interesting thing is you're going to see the Leviathan right away. D-Mist may punch twice before this Leviathan fires. Like, this D-Mist has 35-ish agility. Sid doesn't. Rydia doesn't. And the ticks are just going to bleed. D-Mist punched all 3 times before that Leviathan that was cast while D-Mist was popping out barely got off in time. Like, that's how speedy and punchy this spot is. It is terrifying. But Aerith is set up well to get through. It just needs one more Leviathan. It will be on their way to fighting the random Sparkle, and Kryspyslick
with an adamant.
The reward of all reward.
What? Yeah, you see that adamant, you pop right out. You don't loot anymore. You just go.
And Kryspyslick going to Zod. I don't think there's another option.
Nope. Because, like we mentioned earlier, Zod's got those 2 character checks, and more specifically, they are 2 gated character checks.
Yeah, and Aerith not able to get that second Leviathan off. This is dangerous now. We need to get some people alive who are not Sid. Or go grimoires and vampires and hope we get there. This is very spooky.
I am here for it.
We need another vampire. Okay.
Ooh, okay. But you can get a life off.
I think we're just going to throw the vampire right now and hope that this goes.
Yeah.
Vampire is an instant action, so it's in the queue, and Aerith gets through.
Wow.
Hashtag calculated.
Exactly according to plan.
Yeah, they definitely took it to the edge there, but well done to Aerith getting through. Please save. That's all I ask. Mm-hmm. Also, interesting nuance here. This Sparkle, with that D-Mist being there and with Zot still being on the table, that Sparkle could be Wyvern. That D-Mist could represent a Magma Key. which would be hilarious. Oh, Aerith is leaving, not fighting the Sparkle. Nope, deciding, do I want to stay? Do I want to go?
I would
Not
probably
peeking.
keep it.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I
I
would
think
want to at least peek.
yeah, curiosity, like, you know, I save, I go peek, and if it's something I can take, because I just took out D-Mist, I would feel pretty confident. Because, I mean, with Wyvern, he could have Retreat, he could have Pollen, he could have something very minute or minuscule for his random ability.
Yeah,
Or
the
if-
issue there is that Spot has 38 agility, and once the nukes start flying, you start dying.
That's fair. But that's under the precipice that it is in fact a Wyvern. It could very well be D-Lunars, where you just go ahead and do Reflect Frog.
If
But
you can survive.
yep. But you know, like you said, it could also be Ogo. So in hindsight, I do not blame Aerith for just kind of exiting out and going somewhere else.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out. Definitely, it's a gamble to leave and not peek and not know. Even more interesting to me is Aerith is not immediately turning the D-Mist in. Is now going to Zot, or at least in the Zot area. So I hope they don't forget about turning in this D-Mist. And well, it's not the D-Lunars on the hook route.
No,
Because we have found the D-Lunars on Zot.
I guess you could say we found the Lunars.
Yes.
Yes. And
Sea Lunar. That's a good one. The voice of God letting us know.
oh, wait, you heard the voice of God?
I did.
Oh, fantastic! I did not.
Sorry, actually, I heard Taylor Swift, not the voice of God. Anyway,
Excuse you. It is Tay-Tay.
T-Swizzle. Anyway,
I like it. Anywho, so 1 out of 2 so far. We see Kryspyslick putting those Cure 2 pots to very good effect, very good use.
yeah, and Rydia's still doing the whole car wash thing. D-Lunars are cool and all, but they're better off dead for our runners, because that way they don't cast Breath. Breath is bad. Breath puts Toad on you and Confusion and about 5 other things, and none of them are good. So, good to get through the fight before that can happen. Turn around, probably use a tent, and then see if we get rewarded either with a Cecil or a Foo. Either way, Kryspyslick up an Adamant armor right now, but down that D-Mist. Now, if there's, let's say, a Magma Key here, or like a Twin Harper Baron Key that leads to a Magma Key, Kryspyslick may never get what's hanging out at that D-Mist. So it could be incredibly interesting if Magma Key is somewhere else. That would be a huge potential advantage for Aerith getting through that. We have found our dupe, a second Porum. You can take dupes in this flag set, and we certainly have enough coffins for multiple Porum.
You might say all the coffin for all the Porum. And, but yeah, that D-Mist could very well be something like, oh, I don't know, Baron Key, where it leads to a Golbez or even further Twin Harp.
However,
we could just ignore all of that and get rid of an Eddie and take a Fusoya and just go blow up the seed.
yeah, big fan of taking this Fusoya on. Adamant armor, no. Adamant armor not going on the Fu. Okay.
I wonder if the adamant armor on Kryspyslick's side is potentially being saved for maybe a an Edge or a Cecil, because I mean, once you equip that adamant armor, you tend to keep it on the person you give it to. Boston, remind me, why is it that we want to keep adamant armor on the person we give it to?
No, I don't know. I always put it on whoever the most powerful person is, most relevant person whenever I get it. I think that adamant sickness is the most overhyped and over talked about thing in free enterprise at the moment. Adamant sickness doesn't make a darn bit of difference because most enemies don't use elemental spells, and so they can't actually hurt you any more than normal. But to answer your question legitimately, the reason why we just leave adamant armors on people is because they get adamant sickness. They basically take like quad damage from elemental-based spells. So like Magus Sisters, the elements fight, things like that. For me, I don't care about that at all. I will shuffle that adamant armor around to every last person possible. Whoever the most optimal person is at that moment is getting dang adamant armor. Also, we have a protectory on Kryspyslick's side worth noting, which will override that sickness that's on. Zop gives us a white shirt, which, the big reward is the Fusoya. So it does mean that we are likely staring down the barrel of a hook route here. But on Crispy's side, adamant armor and Fusoya are going to make that a whole lot easier. That Fu also had nuke at like 1400 HP.
I want to know that actually, I think I might know what Aerith is doing by taking the Zot. Because when you get out of Zot, you're transported over to Baron, and it's just a hop, skip, and a jump over to Mist Village. So, from a routing perspective, I like it if that's what they end up doing.
Yeah, it definitely could be a play. I just know that when I when I don't turn in Demas right away, then I tend to forget about it. So Aerith probably has better than a fish's memory like I do. So maybe they have a post-it note. I know that some prominent members of our community use post-it notes that say things like, well, check your Demas. Well, check this. Well, check that. So yeah, that's probably what's in play here. I just personally can't stand putting off the Demas because I will forget.
You, me, and a whole lot of others. And Kryspyslick going back to get his revenge on that Staleman chest. I mean, why have one adamant armor when you can have two? I also want to note that when actually I caught real quick when Kryspyslick was putting on that black shirt onto Fusoya, that I didn't see a highlighted adamant armor for equipping.
It is on Rydia now, and I missed what was in that box. That was so
that was
quickly.
The tiara.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll add it to the pile.
It's defense. Yeah, more defense.
Glass hat.
Glass hat.
Okay. Well, I mean, still, it's more fancy hat, which don't really benefit our team much at this point. But no. A nice to have, I suppose.
I mean, it is a shiny amidst the shinies. And we see Aerith dispensing that Octomam, getting the sushi, and going for the Demas play. I like it.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And if this is a Magma Key, this will save Aerith some time. They will be underground before Kryspyslick. So kind of a pretty big moment here. And it is a Ninja Star. And that is an item that exists.
Agreed. Not gonna lie, had us on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, that was both the attempted humor and the reward.
Yep, agreed. The attempted humor behind that joke was about as rewarding as the Ninja Star.
I will say, like seeing Soma drops here, wish Aerith would have bought one. That puts Fusoya at 200 MP instead of 190. Means you have access to 4 nukes or 5 Cure 4s or 8 weeks. Should D-Machine be our runner's grind of choice? Incredibly unlikely with Silence being an Eblan, but always nice to be prepared for that. Looks like Aerith going to do some shopping or potentially trading out party members. Could be a couple different things to do here, hanging out in Mysidia.
Yeah. and Kryspyslick taking out that Mad Ogre chest on the hook route. Kind of curious to see if he ends up diving the entirety of it.
I would imagine so. He doesn't have anything left on the overworld, so in his eyes, this would have to be exactly the magma key for him not to take on the sparkle. Also, Kryspyslick has the added advantage of one fancy, shiny, or adamant armor that Aerith does not. So in Kryspyslick's situation, even an Ogopogo is a lot more tenable. It would still be rough because it probably would have to go on Did, and you just zerk him up and kind of deal with everybody else trying to survive. Or you could just go with reflect strats and put it on Fu. It's just going to be really interesting if it's Ogopogo. If it's Pale Dim, it's less of a problem.
Yep.
If it's Wyvern, well, it can't be Wyvern. We now know it just literally cannot be. So it's either Ogopogo or Pale Dim at this point. Ogo is the scary one.
Very, and but there are, like you mentioned, the very, very shiny adamant armor, and then also Fusoya. Yeah, we have access to Nuke.
Yeah, all Nuke does is get you extra blaze counters against Ogopogo, though, which is a little spooky. Fusoya also only being 20 agility. Not the fastest character in the world, so the dwarf axes that our runners have may come into play here as well. Reducing Sid's agility by 5 may get Fusoya to a better relative agility tiering, aka being fast enough to get nukes off regularly and reliably. So we shall see. I would expect a save from Kryspyslick here, and that'll put our runners pretty close by the time Aerith gets down here.
Yep, and
we'll probably have dueling sparkles.
And Kryspyslick, doing that safety save, do not blame him.
That fight seemed a little easier for Kryspyslick than it did for Aerith. It's kind of like adamant armor and Nuke is good.
You know what? I hear from the popular crowd that it is preferred to have in such wild hook routes as this.
Moment of truth. All right, this is the air quote easy one. Do we have float is a big question, though. The reason I ask is because you can float your party. Now, you can't float the adamant armor wearer, oddly enough. Adamant armor protects against float, but everybody else will be able to be floated if it's available, and then you go ahead and cast Leviathan. So that would be an alternate strategy that could be available while this Eldem just repeatedly punches our party in the face.
Yep, and Monsieur Le Doot countering our attacking party member, our melee swinging party members with slow. But that's not gonna stop a Leviathan casting and nuke throwing party.
Yeah, still interested to see if we end up actually casting Leviathan. Aerith resets, didn't like something about the fight.
I would say that not being hit in the face by Pale Dim at like battle speed 1 is preferential, but yeah, I'm curious to know. Oh, going backwards. Casting float.
Yeah, the issue with that is when we get into this fight, HPMP recovers, all statuses are removed, so float, apparently float is not removed. That is news to me. But okay, well, cool. I didn't know that. It's cool to learn things.
Today I learned.
I thought all statuses were removed when you got to one of those shiny healing things from one of the elemental fights.
Yep, and Paladin goes down on Kryspyslick's side, and we'll see if Aerith plays catch up by now not taking any damage from Quake.
Yeah, I think Aerith is going to be basically down an adamant armor, but is currently up the Demus check. I still think Kryspyslick has an advantage just because of that adamant armor. If a Pinktail shows up soon, that's the best case scenario for Aerith. That way they can cut into that decided gear advantage that Kryspyslick has. The second adamant armor on Kryspyslick's side, far less important than the first. But for Aerith, that first adamant armor would be incredible.
Absolutely. Because any adamant armor is good adamant armor.
Yeah, there's not too many times when folks are like, oh darn, it's an adamant armor. You don't normally hear that.
Yeah. And I honestly thought, for whatever reason, that adamant armor incurred more penalties than just elemental resistance. I thought there was like some stat negatives or something of the variety.
Nope. Yeah, that's why, and I led with it that I thought it was one of the most overblown, overhyped things. Just put the adamant armors on people you want on. It really don't matter. There's so few things that deal elemental damage that it really doesn't make that much of an impact.
Definitely, and we see Aerith taking Paladin down, and Kryspyslick not wasting any time, taking that starting tower key and just going right up the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, it makes sense. We know that tower key is basically a free check. There's only 600 HP at this spot. It could be more if it's like a gauntlet, for example, and you have to do 5 different fights, or a mom bomb. But we'll see what shows up here. And Aerith will likely be giving us a peek at the top of the tower as well, so we can see, maybe it's a free boss or a relatively free one. We see it is, in fact, what you could argue is the freest of free bosses, the King and Queen of Eblan hanging out at the top of the tower, and just Ruby at the tower key. This is honestly a really nice spot to find Ruby at as well. Ruby can be kind of nasty to a lot of teams, this one included, if it were on the moon. But A, having an adamant armor, and B, only having 600 HP. The magic is super weak here. Just a whole lot of reasons that this is not a scary place for Ruby. Very good for our runners.
And I want to go and actually point out 2 things here with this particular fight. Ruby's Glare only hitting Rosa for 400, and casting Psych on Porum to get some NP back. I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty smart play to do that and to use this fight to do it. If you're planning on nuking down or now medioing down the King Queen Eblan at the top of tower, it will in fact be faster to do that and to kill them than it would be to just let them script out if you're super efficient. So one of those things where Crispy might be trying to optimize their top of tower fight using the tower key fight to do it. So if that is the case, that's pretty dang heads up from a relatively new runner, as you had alluded to, a Pink Puff, recently added to that roster, if you will.
Yep, and and I'm actually just kind of playing through my head. I think actually, because I know the Psych spell is a decently long cast time, but I think that it's still shorter than doing going through the animation of popping, going into your menu, opening up a tent, and then going through the animation.
They're probably about the same time. They're both slower than using a Lilith Rod. That's always the most fun way to do it, since it counts as using an item and it's instant. But looks like Kryspyslick just gonna go ahead here and let them script out. I don't see any spells flying, so yeah, I think we're just gonna take the super easy route. And we do see both runners converging here at the top of the tower. I want to make sure that we thank our behind-the-scenes folks tonight as well. For without them, there would be no broadcast. You would just have 2 goons talking about, I don't know, something random on the screen. But thank you, of course, to the one and only Scala Kitty for the restream and the seed tonight. Stars, we're doing a phenomenal job tracking, making sure that we in the booth are actually talking about the correct things on screen and not just random things. Of course, our runners, Kryspyslick and It's Spelled Aerith, both putting up awesome performances for their team. And last but not least, my co-commentator, the man, the myth, the legend, always trying to make people laugh, snort their milk out through their nose, doing the best that he can to entertain y'all, while I just talk about random technical stuff in this silly game. That'd be the Blue Wizard. Thank you, Blue, for all you do as well.
You know, you say last but not least, when I want to thank the other man, myth, legend, know-it-all, fountain of knowledge, stepped in at quite literally last second to go ahead and help co-commentate. Otherwise, you'd just be hearing a single person attempt to talk about facts for this game. Mr. Possum Morpheus himself. Thank you, Possum.
You're welcome. It happened to work out. I literally had just sat down from getting home and had hobbled my way up the stairs. And yeah, we're good to talk. So that's always fun. Also, top of tower, we can add to the fancy hats that we have. And there have been so many hats this seed. I feel like the Gaia Hat group would absolutely adore doing commentary on this from a tournament past. But another glass hat. So we have glass hats, tiaras, pretty much everything but a ribbon as far as headwear.
You know, they say people who wear glass hats shouldn't throw stones.
Can they throw Leviathans?
They most certainly can. And we see on Crispy's side a lovely shiny Baron key for all their troubles.
Yeah, that's a key item that will get us an objective. So while our runners may not have one under an hour, it is not because they're not trying. The seed been a little bit trolly so far, hasn't really provided the best equipment, again, outside of that adamant armor and some fancy hats. But the damage has been a little bit lacking. So maybe this Baron Key can show us a Cecil, perhaps. We know that the Sand Ruby has a Pain, but we haven't seen a Cecil, we haven't seen an Ed. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what pops out of Baron. And I assume that'll be done once the Pan tournament.
Yep, and speaking of Pan tournaments, we see a Heckin Protect ring. Number 2, I think.
Well, for Kryspyslick, that just means you can move that adamant to even more people, and whoever gets the adamant armor taken off, put the Protect ring on, and then you can just go ahead and have them not be adamant sick. Problem solved. Easy game.
Yep, and so now with Underground, I mean, you know, we still have options, and I have a feeling that your routing would normally go, hey, I'm Underground now, I'm going to go ahead and check the Fey March for the K-Summon, the Fey March freebie, and then I'm guessing go turn in that Pan.
I would actually want to do the Pan first and the Baron Key first, and the reason for that is I would want to come down here and be able to take on the Fey March in one fell swoop. Maybe come down here after a grind and 10 key items. Pan is 2 turn-ins. Baron Key is potentially 2 checks. I'd like to see if there's a way to get to 10 key items. Do a grind. Wharf and the Warp Glitch are still on the table as well. So there's, a half dozen key item checks out there that I personally would like to do before even stepping foot in the Fey March. Because we are not close to go mode. If we were closer to go mode, and let's say we need like a box and a key item, Fey March would be much more of a palatable thing to do, because you just need less, and it's a key item and 2 boss check. Yeah, I just like the concept of not having to double dip the Fey March.
Oh, I am 100% behind you on not having to double dip the Fey March. But I would maybe want to peek it. I have the Pan. I'm gonna go down south, execute that script, and at least peek the Fey March. So this way, when I do inevitably come back down, I'm gonna know what's there, and so I can prep for it.
It is worth noting, Kryspyslick has the decided advantage of having an adamant. So there are things that he could possibly take here. Now, we happen to know that Sparkle is either Wyvern or Ogopogo. That Kainatsu at the king spot, I don't think we can get enough damage out to not have to nerf waves there. That's an awkward enough fight. I don't think an adamant armor is going to help too much there. Plus, the waves are considered true damage. They are field penetrating, if you will. So that's not going to do much for our runners. And oh hey, Aerith picks up a Sand Ruby and a Darkness Crystal. That gets them to 8 key items, if I can count. Also puts 2 more character checks on the table, or at least 1.5. We know there's a Cane at the Sand Ruby, so at this point in the seed. But that Darkness Crystal, that opens up the Giant of Babel as an objective, the 6 moon spots, and a character check. Could be a Cecil. Kryspyslick saying, I'm going to go to Dwarf. You might find their Cecil in Dwarf. I think right now, with an X-Scal in hand, I believe at least for Kryspyslick, the character checks make a lot of sense, but Crispy says, nope, I'm out of Dwarf. We're not doing this fight.
Yeah, I do not blame them. Although having that cane does mean that you can equip some of those weapons like the Avenger that was picked up. But now that I think about it, I think the Avenger, wasn't that in Eblan?
Yeah, I think that Crispy has an Avenger and an Adamant that Aerith does not. So I'm not sure what we have for this cane. I know that there is a Gungnir Spear picked up somewhere. I don't know who picked it up. But I'm very curious what this cane has on Aerith's side.
You know what? That's a mighty fine question. And actually, and Kryspyslick seeing his lovely Shuriken Ninja. Well, we have a Dwarf Axe to Avenger.
So chat letting us know Avenger was from the format Ogres. So both runners do have it. So that makes Kane a lot more interesting. Honestly, Avenger Kane with an Adamant armor, I would probably run over Fu with an Adamant armor, or Iridia with an Adamant armor, just because, like, with DKC's already gone, D-Lunars are already gone. There's literally nothing left that punishes you for just running around and letting Kane hit things as fast and hard as possible.
Yep, and we know that here in Baron, at Baron 1, it's just going to be that Leviathan. So Avenger Kane is just going to, run and hit things.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I think on Crispy's side, I would like to see the Kane get picked up as well. On Aerith's side, obviously, it makes sense that Avenger just lets them do something that no one else in that party can. So I think for both runners, actually, until the Cecil shows up, I think that Kane with the Avenger is a pretty primo play to get him going.
And with the check still available and the objectives that have yet to be complete, you want to worry about less. And so having an Avenger, whatever else gear Kane to just kind of run around and be on autopilot, I think is a pretty good play. And sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, recently, one of my favorite auto battlers went away, and it went the way of the dinosaurs. But Kane with an Avenger and an Adamant armor basically turns Free Enterprise into an auto battle. And it's kind of funny in a sense that you can just sit there and let him wail away on everything. You can turn it into steak percent. You can make yourself a meal. You can go fold the laundry. Whatever you need to do. Take medication. Make sure you're doing all right. Take a look in the mirror and say, dang, I look good. Whatever it is you're going to be doing. And eventually let you do it. It's that powerful.
Mm-hmm. And we see on Kryspyslick's side that he's actually going the moon route.
Well, you might want to go the Baron route at some point, though, because this Baron's hard required.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, also, very much.
This is a surprisingly spooky spot for Golbez. The magic here is a lot harder hitting than you would expect. and it's a little bit faster than you would expect as well. I don't know that we have anyone on Aerith's side that is going to negate the hold, which means that once the snake comes out, we may be living on the edge of a 50-50 here from this initial barrage of spells from Golbez. So this is a little scary on Aerith's side. On Kryspyslick's side, not so scary because of the adamant armor. It will block the hold and the instant death. Fusoya going down, also the worst possible option on Aerith's side. This is very scary.
And we see Crispy not getting, probably not getting a character that they would have preferred, but just the other half of the twin set.
Yeah, and down goes Rydia, and down goes Sid, and this is what I was afraid of. Having to win that 50-50 and also losing Fu there meant that you didn't have the right people alive. Just really unfortunate for Aerith, but at least now they know Golbez is there, so they will likely be able to get through it the second time. But that definitely hurts, wiping to that Golbez.
Definitely, and I don't know. I'm looking at their everyone's key items, and neither of our runners have either half a forge. Because I am patiently waiting to see what potentially comes out of there.
Yeah, going to be really interesting to see what happens, going forward. And on Crispy's side, we do see him going into Baron. We know that because of that adamant, he's also going to be able to get through this Golbez first try. So that adamant armor just paying huge dividends here. But that will, at least for both of our runners, light up 2 objectives once they are able to get through that Golbez on the throne. And who knows, this could be just the start of a flood of required key items, and our runners being able to complete many of them.
Yep. So I mean, I think this could very well be that kind of rabbit hole where Baron with Golbez leads to Twin Harp, and Twin Harp leads to Luca Key, or vice versa. Or it's a rabbit hole that leads potentially down nowhere. Because the K Moon check is on, so that'll allow our runners to go and check all of the lunar subterranean, as well as Cave Bahamut, also known as Cave Value.
Yeah, I will say that I would expect both of our runners to go to Dwarf Castle before clearing the moon. Just because it does represent 2 key item check, a character check, and another boss check. We know who's at Dwarf 2, but we do not know who's at Dwarf 1.
With what we've seen for bosses so far, what would you feel is, I mean, we have Fusoya and adamant armor on Kryspyslick's side, but even at that, still a Fusoya amidst both of our runners' parties. Who do you think might pose any kind of challenge or threat to the current parties at Dwarf?
Val at Dwarf 1 is the only potential issue, but on Aerith's side, we have the Cane. For Kryspyslick, it would have to be Sid beating Val to death, and at that spot, there's 5 physical multipliers for evade. It makes it nigh on impossible. So that would be a huge issue. Otherwise, there's nothing that would slow either runner down. I think the bigger thing right now is that Fey March. If that is hard required, those are 2 gnarly fights even with adamant armor. Either Sparkle on the right hand side is going to have 66 agility, which is a lot, and then that Kainatsu is devastating. That is an edge coming from Baron, which I believe means that Cecil is either Dwarf, Package, or Giant at this point. And Aerith says goodbye sweet princess, Rydia hath been yeeted, Leviathan, Tiara, and all. So Aerith looks like they are going more of a Zerker strat long term, where I think Crispy is pretty beholden to the mages, barring, I would assume, a Cecil showing up.
Yeah, and having a team of mages definitely poses the idea for doing reflect strats later on.
Yeah, reflect strats definitely would be on the table. Baron Liberation gives us a siren. That would be excellent if we didn't already know where infinite sirens were hanging out in the hook route shop along with those coffins. We have double middle sword edge that does leave a little bit to be desired for sure, but Karate Gi strength ring does a little bit of helping. Curious to see on Kryspyslick's side, do we take the edge? Looks like we say goodbye Porom, and we are taking the edge for both runners. Kind of interesting on Kryspyslick's side. I thought we were pretty committed to the mage team. That if anyone would have been picked up Zerker-wise, that Kane plus the Avenger would have really caught my fancy more than an edge. So curious where this one leads out for Kryspyslick.
You know, and having Kane in Crispy's party is still actually on the table, I think, because the Gungnir, I was thinking about it, the Gungnir was actually picked up on Crispy's side from Eblan Cave. So it is, I mean, that's definitely a possibility. And Aerith running into the Calbrena dolls in Baron Basement. With this particular party, that is relatively free.
Yeah, it's not going to be too much of a problem. Basically, go through, take out these dolls. It's just going to be a single quake from Fu will handle it here. Going to throw some sizes out, but yeah, I think just a single quake will do it here. Hopefully this blitz doesn't kill the front dolls. They don't have the most health here, but they do survive.
Yep, and much like you're saying right now, that the size will only affect the back row. I think that even though they're sized, they can still turn into the giant doll.
Yeah, as long as they are, I want to say toaded, they won't, but I think if they are muted, sized, or anything like that, they still do turn into Calbrena. I think it's just the toad that blocks the script. Not 100% on that one, because I know that normally you just either hourglass, wake them, toad them. But hey, if you wanted to get underground, there's your underground access. But more importantly, it's just another key item to put in the pile. And you had mentioned this boss earlier that we just saw jumping around on Kryspyslick's side. If I'm not mistaken, that was a mom bomb. And that's going to add about 10,000 extra health to the spot. And that explode will do a fairly chunky amount of damage. So not something that is completely trivial for the non-adamant wearing party members here.
Yep, exactly, because that explosion damage is actually magic-based that I've relearned recently. More specifically, re-experienced recently. Because seeing Mom Bomb in spots with higher magic power, I mean, you want to take her down before she transitions over to the 6 bombs.
Yeah, the whole exploding thing is it's an adventure in the wrong place. So as far as Kryspyslick is concerned, probably is fine here. We have 4 party members who are north of 700 health. Even Rydia at 600 is probably fine here. I reckon this only does like 400 if I remember right, or it does 0 if you just kill it, which Kryspyslick has successfully done. So GG, Mom Bomb, you tried, you failed, carry on. But more importantly, do we have the man, the guy that can use the stick, or do we have just another character here? We have the guy that can use a stick.
The 4th is strong with this one.
And Kryspyslick kept Edge about as long as until that Cecil showed up, and Edge has gone the way of the dinosaurs. I will say that's interesting to me. I personally would have gotten rid of Rydia here and just committed to full Zerg strats and have Fusoya be my, if I need a black mage, I have one.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see getting rid of, Rydia or even Rosa, honestly. Like, I know they're the power couple, but you've got Fusoya.
Yeah. On Aerith's side, I would actually expect Kayn to be swapped out here for Cecil.
Definitely.
And I think the reason for that is they both can use the Avenger, and you don't really have room for both unless you want to be getting rid of the Rosa, which also is a possibility. You can hard commit, and yeah, there goes the Kayn. I think that's the expected result on Aerith's side.
Agreed. And, honestly, I wonder if Aerith, after picking up that Cecil here, goes and does Eblan Castle. Because, I mean, you have a strong enough party that you can do it, for sure. And then it's like, oh, hey, I have a... Maybe I'll get a Crystal Sword and pick up a spoon from that Warp Glitch.
Yeah, so we got 2 weapons out of Dwarf. One is a Legend Sword, which, well, I mean, it's a weapon, it's a holy sword in the most technical sense, which I suppose is the best sense. We also got a spoon. Kryspyslick has an adamant armor.
Yep.
I mean, Kryspyslick probably just going to ride Cecil with an adamant armor for right now. Has 10 key items now, notably, as well. So I think this is Crispy's final party. What are we, like 3/5 of the way to a vanilla party, I think? I don't think Foo's part of it, nor is Sid. But yeah, we have Excal, and I think probably going to jam as much strength here on Cecil. Makes a lot of sense. Would love to have seen Eddie get picked up, but I can definitely understand not, even with the spoon.
Yeah, I mean...
But yeah, Aerith might go and hunt Holy Sword now. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine, you're fine. I was just going to say, I'm actually really surprised that, we didn't just take that adamant armor from Rydia. Like, you've had your time to shine, now let the grown-ups do more damage.
Yeah, might be just using Rydia with the adamant armor as a way to virus the eggs quickly until Cecil gets strong enough, which would literally be this fight, to one-shot the eggs. I don't think at a base level he would be able to one-shot them, guaranteed, whereas I think Rydia would. So...
I don't know. I think Excal, Adamant Armor, Strength Ring, Headband, Cecil, base level can one-shot an egg on a high roll.
Yeah, but if you need a high roll, that opens you up to not one-shotting, whereas we know this Rydia will.
Yeah.
But now this Cecil, easy peasy, would be able to one-shot him.
Definitely. And, so I know a lot of our runners tend to go, endgame level 40-ish. Having Holy Sword, Cecil, even without Adamant Armor, Black Belt, Headband, Strength Ring, I feel like you can go into some more of your checks a little bit lower level, like, mid to late 30s. Or do you just grind up to 40 and nuke?
I think that in this situation, I would do probably 5 or so of these eggs. Maybe even stop now, and then just basically turn Cecil loose on the moon and let him just murderize everything. We've kind of reached the point where, in a lot of these seeds, this happens. Once you get an Adamant Armor, a Cecil, and a Holy Sword, you just kind of let Cecil win the game. And I would like to see Crispy just use Moon Bosses as his grind at this point. The other thing is, we know that the Gauntlet is still out there, and we have seen a lot of bosses already. There is a very high chance that the Gauntlet is either on the moon or the Giant. Not to mention that Giant also is an objective. That is 500,000 experience just waiting for our runners as well. So I don't think you want to be doing a full rack of eggs unless you are getting everybody to nuke and white. But when you have Cecil casting nuke every turn he swings the sword, I think that too many eggs are a detriment here. I know that I am the leader of the 30 Sirens in a Dream cartel, if you will, but I don't think it's correct, at least on Kryspyslick's side. I think that there's so much XP out there.
Oh yeah, agreed. And I do wonder, Possum, what level does Cecil learn nuke?
I would say Cecil learns nuke in Kryspyslick's party at probably level 45. Every time he swings, it is casting nuke. On Aerith's side, I think it's probably closer to level 50. But either way, again, the whole moon is out there and the giant. And yeah, I like this from Aerith, saying, I don't need all the XP in the world with this team. I need enough to get going, but I don't need all of it.
Yeah, it's like I need survivability. And then I can pick up the rest as I go. Because with only 2 objectives on the board, there's still, like you said, there's still a lot out there. The Alt Gauntlet being at anywhere on the moon, because none of those have been checked. It can be at the Giant of Babel, and also could be at the Sealed Cave.
Yeah, Sealed Cave Gauntlets, that's the thing that exists, and we're not going to talk about.
Speaking from personal experience?
Worst gauntlet in the game.
Uh-huh. Agreed.
Everyone talks about the Masamune Altar Gauntlet and how it's so terrible and so obnoxious. It's just that the fights are all endgame. But they're not generally hard by the time you get there. With the right party. The Sealed Cave Gauntlet is always annoying and forever taking. Because the enemies are fast and they come in packs of like 6. And they just take forever to kill, and they have too much health to AoE. It's just I don't like that one. Give me the Masa Gauntlet.
I personally love the Masa Gauntlet because is it the Masa Gauntlet or the Crystal Sword Gauntlet where you see Fatalize?
That is the Crystal Sword Gauntlet. One is Fatalize. I think 2 of the fights are Fatalize. One of the fight is 2 blue dragons, which is also gross. And one of the fights at the very end is a super odd fight. It's a King, a Ryu, and a red giant. That one being at the end is super weird to me, but it's the one that exists.
Yep. And okay, so in that case, I am a Crystal Sword, and I would say Masa Gauntlet fan because I do love me some Mirror Mask fights.
You can steal Star Veils from them.
Yes.
About 1 in every 20 tries.
Now, does that go up if you have Porum using Cry?
Fractionally, because basically what it does is it kind of reduces levels, if you will. Think of it that way, and makes it easier to steal. But the problem is it's still they're level 99 to start. Oh boy. Okay. So
about that Ogo.
Yeah. About that Ogo Pogo. Yeah, that's 66 agility of Ogo Pogo Go Burr. And Kainatsu. And yeah, I honestly don't hate saving this until after you've done everything else in the game on Aerith's side. Without the adamant armor, people are going to die in that fight, and your damage output is just not what it really wants to be. On Kryspyslick's side, it's a little different. I don't know who the adamant armor is on. I would love to see it go over to Cecil. If the adamant goes on to Cecil, then he can pretty well get you through anything here. But it does look like Kryspyslick did a full grind and was able to get everyone to very large numbers. Yeah, Rydia even having nuke. So that is a full grind on Kryspyslick's side, in addition to having an adamant. The only downside to this is we don't have a curse ring. So Sid is likely somewhere around 23 agility, which is frankly an awful number to be at. This Ogo Pogo is still going to be absolutely zooming. And that Kainatsu is still going to deal a ton of damage with the waves. Everyone's going to live through them. but this is still a Feymarch that exists. This is still a losable fight to this Ogopogo on Kryspyslick's side, even with everything he has. And direct casting Nuke is going to be awkward because that's going to draw out another Blaze, which is going to drop a lot of these party members 25% health. So Kryspyslick is literally taking this fight as, I will deal more damage than you do, and I will just kill you before you kill me, which certainly can work. It is a tried and true strategy, and looks like he has the levels to pull this off.
Yep. I mean, case in point, that Rydia still has the adamant armor on, showcasing almost quad 9s.
Yep, and just the brute force allowing Kryspyslick to get through that Ogopogo. We'll see if he takes the same approach with the Kainatsu.
Yep, an adamant rock for his grinding and troubles. We can almost call that fight an Ogo YOLO.
I'll allow it, and reward it as well. That's the Forge, and that's a big payout for Kryspyslick. That puts something spectacular in Sid's hand to complement Cecil.
Yep. So 1 and 3, what it'll be. And you know, we talked about how Kainatsu's wave attacks are based off of his health and trying to get as much damage as possible in. But you know, there's a couple strategies here with Kainatsu. One is just, you know, burr, get him down so his waves don't hurt as much, leaving him in the water phase. The other one being to just time those lightning attacks so he's constantly getting interrupted. I personally, like, I am a fan of both, and I like seeing people execute both, depending on their party, their group comps, and just kind of, you know, seeing the variety.
Yeah, and no variety here from Kryspyslick. This is just me go burn me murder, and things are dying on Kryspyslick's side. Yes, a wave comes out, but this is a baby wave, 200-ish damage to everybody in the party. Meanwhile, Aerith taking the giant first here, likely going to try to make this the rest of their grind. Makes a lot of sense. Also seeking out the last arm chest. Last arm chest is a big deal because it's very heavy percentage chance of tier 8s. And Aerith only has an Avenger for Cecil, does not have a Holy Sword yet, and it is going to be vanilla last arm chest once Aerith gets to it. Kainatsu gives a package that is cannot possibly be hard required. Could have a gauntlet, but I highly doubt we'll see a package check here for Crispy. I think we're likely to see the Forge, and then heading up to the moon would be my best guess for Crispy.
Yep, and we see Aerith swapping out their lightsaber on this lovely May 4th day for the Avenger. So while having a Holy Sword, yeah, it's still a good sword to swap out for the Avenger.
I mean, wouldn't it be something if we had a runner take a lightsaber into Z on May the 4th? That would be kind of appropriate, you know?
Can we get last minute meta objectives in?
Rip that dream. There's an X-Cal. Well, so the Holy Sword thing is equalized now. So both runners have Holy Sword Cecil. But there's, no adamant armor still for Aerith. That is a Thor hammer, though. So you got your preferred weapon for King.
Yeah, it's
excuse me.
Close enough.
Oh, boy.
Well, hey, about that hard required on Giant of Babel and lots of experience.
Yeah, this is interesting for Aerith. This kind of negates a lot of the grind. Should they be able to get through it? And I say that because this is 5 encounters pulled from this area. And I can't remember if it's the 3rd or 4th one in here, but the 3rd or the 4th fight in here is particularly spooky. It is a singular D machine. Now, thankfully, we have weak, it's not going to be as big a deal. But that single D machine is just like, oh, me cast flame, fire, whatever it is. 25% of your health, gone. And it's just going to do it over and over and over and over again. And if you hit it, it counters by hitting you. It is a gross fight when you are not expecting to have to fight it. Aerith has played this game long enough, knows what's going to be coming in this gauntlet, maybe not verbatim, maybe not in the exact order, but knows that there will be a D machine. Also, very expertly, instead of using nuke, is using weak to make sure that the Mac Giants will be in a situation where they can just be basically tapped by anybody and killed. Weak sets the HP between 1 and 9 for an enemy, and then you just kind of bonk it with whoever needs to bonk it, and it falls over and you get your XP.
Yep, because as many of us know, those Mac Giants are no joke when trying to take them on. They are tough, they have good amount of health, they're just overly rude.
Yeah, as someone who has done a Mac Giant grind just so he could then do another Mac Giant grind, because it would be more efficient to do a second one, yeah, it's a thing that exists.
Yep, Mac Giant grinds, Horseman grinds.
Worth noting though, Kryspyslick gets that magma key and says, nope, I'm good, and resets out. So Kryspyslick, I believe, is fresh out of things to do on the blue planet outside of the package boss check. And it does not look like that is in the cards for him. Is he going moon or is he going giant is going to be interesting as well, because we still need a lot of key items. But if he waits to do the giant, that could give Aerith some catch-up time, because this is what we know now, a hard required giant.
Yep, and not to mention, I mean, I feel that if a dupe character pops up, namely Fu, Cecil, here, as well as one of those key items, I mean, this is going to be the most hard required check I've ever seen.
Well, worth noting, there can't be another dupe character because we have seen our one dupe in the seed, which was Porum. So that can't happen. But it, could still be a character of merit. Although I think that after a giant, nobody else is getting added to this party. But as far as, the pathing for Aerith now, the Twin Harp and the Luca key, obviously the quicker they are found, the better it becomes for Aerith. The longer it goes on, the better it is for Kryspyslick. So it's kind of interesting in that sense that both our runners are on a clock, but in a different direction.
Yep, and I mean, race, RNG, randomness, nobody knows. Don't worry, folks, I'm a professional.
But it is also worth noting that by the end of this seed, both of our runners will have more levels than God. Kryspyslick will have twice as many levels as God after doing a full grind, and then likely most of the moon, and then likely the giant as well. So we'll have to do the giant at some point. But it's a situation where there's going to be a whole ton of HP heading into the Z fight. Our runners are simply going to have to figure out what is their optimal way through that fight. And even without an adamant armor, I actually like Aerith's setup better for the final fight, this Aromas fight. More so than I like Kryspyslick's setup, because Kryspyslick is looking at either hybrid strats or just a Sid Cecil's, whereas Aerith is looking at a Trizerk setup. So it's very interesting.
You know what? I'm intrigued by both of our runner setups. I mean, yes, Aerith's side is a little bit more favored towards Zerking because, I mean, let's be honest, who doesn't like doing the Zerk strats? It's always fun. But to Kryspyslick's side, I actually would be opposed to doing a hybrid strat especially like if you're not familiar with it, and more just kind of doing the reflect strat, because that radio with an adamant armor, I mean, if she's not hitting for quad 9s, you know, it's going to be a bit of an awkward time. But between Fu and Rydia slinging nukes or whites, it's just going to make that Zeromus fight go that much quicker.
Yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense. Not to lean into the hybrid. For me, I would just love to just slap an adamant armor on a Cecil with a big sword and just let him go do his thing, and then just cure 4 people as they need it. But I think there's a lot of viable paths to the end here, and I suppose that is the one nice thing about having all those levels, is that, you know, you have that flexibility. Aerith breezes through that Mylon Z, got through the gauntlet very well also. Worth noting that is not a free gauntlet, especially not for Aerith, because they did not do a full grind before coming up, but they are fully grinded now. But that for Aerith is going to be Objective 3, the Gauntlet, and Objective 7, the Giant of Babel completed. Oh hey, it's Yang. Yang would have been great if we had him before the Gauntlet and the million billion XP we just got. There is not a chance heck that we take this Yang, but he might have an Elemental Claw that we could pick up and take off of him. And we just saw Mylon Z evaporate in the Giant. Now we get Mylon Z's cousin, the Elements fight on the moon.
Yep, alongside Quarter Leg. Not an Elemental Claw, but close.
Yeah, Poison, not an element in this game. You gotta wait for Final Fantasy VI for that to happen.
Yep, it's an element of the purple variety that you can't see.
Oh, purple. I like purple.
It tastes good.
Purple.
And Aerith making their way to the moon. Kind of curious to see what route or path they take.
I actually think this Luca key is bad for Kryspyslick. The fact that it shows up on the top-down play is bad for 2 reasons. Kryspyslick may actually be incentivized to chase this right now, because if it's exactly the Gauntlet at the Sealed Cave, between the Gauntlet, the Sealed Cave, and the Giant, that would be go mode for Crispy. So he might be thinking, oh, I need to go do this Luca key and see if it is exactly that. And then when he finds out it isn't, probably saves the Giant until after the rest of the moon. But looks like he's just hard committing to the moon as a whole. Aerith looks like they are not going the cave value way. Is Aerith going to go Murasame, or is Aerith going to go to the bottom? Lots of interesting plays here. Now, knowing where the Luca key is, but not knowing where the harp is, this one's still got a lot of race left in it, because Aerith is not going top down.
Yeah, in Aerith's shoes, I feel I took one gamble earlier and it paid off pretty well. Maybe I can do it again, just to maybe just inch forward a little bit more and go either, to the bottom first or Crystal Sword even.
Yeah, we could get the Crystal Sword play first, which is known as the Demarine play, named after one of our lovely community admins and longtime community member. So that's always something that is fun when it happens. Rarely does it happen. Typically, you'll see folks go either bottom up or top down. Looks like Kryspyslick went with the top down approach into the bottom 3 altars, and by top down we mean the Cave Value and Murasame altars. Aerith going for the full bottom up play, which is going to be these bottom 3 altars, and then likely the Crystal Sword altar, the Murasame altar, and Cave Bahamut. So Aerith will likely be in go mode 5 checks from now. However, Kryspyslick, once they find the Twin Harp, should they find the Twin Harp up here, and it not be gated behind, well, I guess actually the Twin Harp has to be up here. There's no way out of that. Once Kryspyslick finds the Twin Harp, they will also be in go mode. Kryspyslick could actually complete 7 out of 7 objectives this seed, depending on when they do the giant.
Yeah, and words are hard. As you so very clearly mentioned earlier, looking at this, knowing where the Luca key is, I think doing a run of the LST is still a very viable play because neither of our runners have the pass. And if you pick up the pass on the moon, well, then you can go down to the Luca cave and just go ahead and use the pass at your leisure.
Yeah, speaking of things that are not going to be done at our runner's leisure, though, is this evil wall. This is a pretty nasty little fight here. Our runners are going to get through it just fine because, again, they both have tons of levels, but it's still kind of an annoying fight. It's pretty fast. It has 42,000 HP in this spot. It is nowhere near as kind as the fight one door to the left. So if you pick door number 2 on The Price is Right, you may choose correctly for the Twin Harp should it be here. But boy, does that door hit back when you try to open it up.
Yep, I will take. But even with the evil wall being here at the Ribbon Room, I will take things that are not a problem for 500. Possum.
Yeah, you can call me Alex too if you want.
Thank you, Trouble Base Bach.
Zeus Gauntlet Crystal Sword. Okay.
Okay. Well, I mean, so I will take nothing else that is a problem for 1,000 there.
Yeah, I mean the Crystal Sword honestly is, as weird as this is going to sound, it's pretty irrelevant. It's far more relevant for Aerith than it is for Kryspyslick because the damage that you're going to get increase-wise from Aerith's side, going from X-Gal to Crystal Sword, is a much bigger, jump than on Crispy's side, where he's already getting the benefits of an adamant armor. So I think that's a bigger deal for Aerith, also being pure Zerker. That being said, that's not what either of our runners wanted. A Zeus Gauntlet and a Crystal Sword, as silly as it sounds, is not what our runners wanted.
It's a nice consolation, but like you said, we still have key items to get, and there's still. Let me see if I'm. Don't worry, folks. I can math on stream. I promise. 4 checks, 5 checks left.
We have the Twin Harp check. We have the Masa altar. We have the Crystal Sword altar. That's it. Because we've seen everything else, courtesy of Kryspyslick.
Yep.
So we know that the Twin Harp is in one of 2 places. It's either at the Masa altar or it's at the Crystal Sword altar. We also know the Luca key, of course, is at the Mura altar. So I think Kryspyslick is slightly ahead here. But again, I also do think Aerith has a shorter Z fight. So now that also being said, where is this second pass? Because that's also a thing that exists. And if there's a path at the Twin Harp, and let's say Kryspyslick does Giant and then goes into Luca, could miss out on the path, which could also be another interesting thing. Hello Wyvern, this is a stone casting Wyvern, but only single target, so if it were multi-target, that would be very spooky.
Yep, but thankfully it's only single target, and we have lots of things go burr, and that's that. Definitely a fight where, even though it was a pretty weak opening, those nukes are still gonna hurt here.
Yeah, I mean the nuke damage is fixed. Basically, it's gonna max at like about like 1,600. Liking the strategy here from Kryspyslick a little better was much more riding the Zerkers in this fight rather than reflecting spells. Just a lot faster to just let people go burn. Loving the decision here from Kryspyslick to reset out of the pink tail. Already has an adamant armor, and kind of as we've discussed, the second adamant armor is way less important than the first. I don't think you're going to see Aerith make that same choice. I think Aerith, they will walk out that because that adamant armor. Prove me wrong. Go ahead and do it. Both runners saying, heck your adamant armor, silly flag set designer. We don't care about them. Take them back to the adamant cup where they belong. Both runners going to be on their way to the Crystal Sword Altar, which we know has to have the Twin Harp at this point. There is nary another location that exists that could happen.
Yep, and yeah, unlike the armor reward you get from that pink tail turn-in, our runners are adamant about getting that Twin Harp.
And this is a fight that exists.
This is, yeah, definitely a fight that exists. It's very, very neutral. It's just, beefy in the terms of hit points.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of just going full plan Q here. Plan Q being the community's terminology for just kill it with fire. Zerk everybody up, quake it. If people die, they die. The cool thing, though, is the Globe 199 here is based on magic, as it is everywhere. And Globe 199 is weak if the magic is weak. Sid took a Globe 199 to the face, and, well, he kept on doing Sid things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Thor hammer putting in work, and you know, I think, oh man, just Crystal Sword, Cecil, Thor hammer, Sid, and Fusoya. Just, I mean, that Z fight's gonna, you know, melt away.
Yeah. Also worth noting, as we see some float strats here. Going the correct way as well. The attacker orb got floated on Aerith's side. This is a very old school strat at this point, where you reflect a float to get the attacker orb or the defender orb, either one floated, so you can quake the back orb, because for whatever reason, floating orbs known as CPU aren't actually floating. So now you can just go ahead and quake. They're also not machines, even though, you know, they're a central processing unit. Whatever.
You know, I you know, this, I want to raise a point, that the visual effect of them quote unquote floating is not them floating, but Mylon Z, who looks to be clearly on the ground, is actually floating.
But Mylon Z has a shadow. These don't.
I stand by words.
Also worth noting, Kryspyslick on their way to the Giant before going to the Twin Harp or the Sealed Cave. Kryspyslick going to be left with a 50-50 choice after this of either going to Luca or going to the Twin Harp. Kryspyslick has seen every key item in the game. At this point knows the pass has to be at the Harp. 100%. Kryspyslick, as much as I hate to say this, the guy with the Fade Harp emote, Kryspyslick has to do the Harp after this. Should be fading Luca.
Yep, and also want to go ahead and mention, I don't know if we actually said anything about this possum, that even though there's 7 objectives on the board, our runners only actually have to go ahead and complete 6 of them.
True.
However, it is possible to go ahead and do all 7 checks if you get something where you are faced with a boss hunt, much like the Babel Gauntlet, or the Alt Gauntlet, and completing the Giant of Babel. So if you happen to finish that fight and it completes the Giant of Babel, you'll technically do all 7 at once.
That's true. You could definitely, on this seed it's not going to happen, but there was a fleeting moment where it could have. Aerith making a play here, I actually like this from Aerith's perspective, that to them, the pink tail, the adamant rock, and the package are all unknowns at this point. So Aerith thinking, I got the harp, this could be my adamant rock, that could be all 6 of my objectives. So I do like this play from Aerith, leaving the moon and heading down. Oh, correct. The pink tail was reset out of. So, you know, I'm going to keep forgetting this, because who would ever reset out of an adamant armor, right? But Aerith heading down here thinking, well, this could be a package, a Luca key, or an adamant rock, potentially a pass as well. So this routing is going to work out better for Kryspyslick in the end, but for Aerith, it makes sense from their perspective as well, even though we know for this seed, it is the air quote incorrect choice. I think it makes a lot of sense in Aerith's current position. Plus, I guess y'all get music.
Yeah, I guess so. And, that we get the commentate for, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to stop talking through music. It's meant for after the seed, not during.
Exactly.
I don't know what everyone's big thing about, like having to not do comms for music, like having to listen to the dulcet tunes of the bard, just going ham on that harp. I don't get it.
Hey, look, the music at harp doesn't have any lyrics, so we got to go ahead and provide.
See, that's a great point. We should always be providing the lyrics for the harp, no matter how monotone or disinterested we sound about it. There's absolutely no way that anybody on this or any planet can stop me from talking.
A lovely rendition from Donkey Kong. Right? That's where that's from?
I thought it was Tetris.
Oh, so Grand Theft Auto. Got it. It's the one with Lumber, right?
I don't think we have any of those songs in the pool. Either way, turns out there is one person who can mute me. I forgot. Thanks, Scala. But we do have Kryspyslick heading to the end of the giant. Aerith has a choice. There are 2 moon spots and there are 2 Feymarch spots. Does Aerith stick to their fade, or do they head underground? Aerith sticks to their fade. So Aerith is going to need to get the Luca key from the Murasame altar. That will be their go mode. Whereas Kryspyslick just needs to go and complete the harp. This is going to be a close one. I reckon Crispy is a smidge ahead, but even with all these levels and all this power, Sea Hero Z fights are not free.
Nope. Because, both of our runners, I believe, have silk webs. That's nice, but I still am not a fan of running Z on Battle Speed 1. I'll do it for funsies, but in a race, not so much.
With full Zerkers, absolutely. And a silk web, yes, 100%. With the reflect or even potentially hybrid or no silk web, yeah, Battle Speed 1 is very spooky. It's not that bad once your Zerkers are going, but boy is it nasty beforehand. That first batch of, shakes and Big Bang comes out and, ooh, yeah, it can be rough. What's not rough, though, Aerith making the correct fade. Staying away from Cave Bahamut, heading on down to the Murasame altar. This is where that twin harp, that Luca key is going to come from. that's going to be Aerith's last objective, while Kryspyslick is going to swag fly the big whale over. Again, knows at this point Twin Harp has to have the pass, so not going to have to do any awkward, Trojan parking authority nonsense. Again, I think Crispy's a little bit ahead here, but also depends what could be at that sealed cave and how the Z fights go. Very close race. Especially impressed with Aerith able to stick with Crispy here, given that Kryspyslick has had an adamant arm since the 25-minute mark?
Yeah. And I just also want to go ahead and showcase the fact that we are almost at the 2-hour mark, and both of our runners have been just extremely extraordinary. In how they've routed, how they've done their strats versus some of these boss locations, and just, rando gonna rando, and this is the type of seed, and I am absolutely in love with it.
Yeah, it's one of those where there's some, weird key items in weird places. Crystal Sword Altar having a required key item, Murasame Altar having a required key item, Ogopogo having a required key item, Demist on the hook route, making you question your life choices, Cecil hiding until pretty late for our runners as they didn't get him until after the hour mark, because they did all their other character checks, but not Dwarf, and that's where he just happened to be. So it ended up being an incredibly close match in the end, even though, you might have thought one runner was substantially ahead of the other. But, here we go. Kryspyslick going to be doing this Twin Harp check while Aerith is going to be making the descent into the sealed cave. And I guess probably we should shush for, the reprisal of music this time.
We are just you.
Okay, whatever, okay. Man. That's just your opinion. Something.
Hey, I'm a Mega Man right here.
Well, y'all enjoy the Tetris music. Whatever. All right, well, that is a pass and a completed Cave Magnus and a crystal for Kryspyslick and a Valvalis Aerith with 66 agility. Ew.
I was just thinking about things that I'm like, oh yeah, there's not really anything else that could potentially ruin a person's day. They'll get through the fight, but it's still going to be a little sluggish.
Yeah. The issue with this is that you can't magic, so you kind of just have to sit there and take it as far as the weaks and the rays are concerned and the punches. Fu can't do anything. Rosa's just like, hi, I'm Rosa, and the dudes are just like, we hit them. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit awkward of a fight because it's about the most time-consuming one that was left. That being said, Aerith is through. Kryspyslick is turning in the pass and heading on in to do the big bad final boss. And I swear, chat is just not prepared. Still in potion party mode, just doesn't understand the meaning of the Z flag. And I just can't even ask what all the Z flags are for if they're not there, Blue. So just go ahead and take it away, man.
Well, it's nap time. I'm out of here. I'm going to bed. I'll see you later.
Okay, bye.
That's for. Bye. The Z flags. So we have the one, the only sprite, monster, boss, BBEG that we cannot move, we cannot shift, who likes to cosplay in his own spot. So therefore, Z gets to go ahead and cosplay. Awesome. What is that big magical question that we all like to ask?
What's for dinner?
Yes. Whose yeet shall we seat? I mean, whose seat shall we... Who on the moon will get the spoon?
Who's Twerker? Are we going to Zerker? And so many more. Yeah, but no, I like whose yeet are we going to seat? I 10 out of 10 approve of that one, my friend. That was a A+.
I do what I can. Does this... do they have a hat? Is it a funny hat? Is it a quirky hat? I mean, this is Many Hats Anonymous. And we will see.
MHA.
So we will see next time on Free Enterprise.
But it's super cute.
No hat. More along the lines of something along the stuff of Nightmares, because that is Emil from Nier Automata.
Super cute.
All the cute.
Okay, so Kryspyslick. Let's talk about the actual fight that's going on. Silk Web was used to nerf, which is A+. You definitely want to be nerfing with a Silk Web because it applies 2 stacks of slow to whatever your enemy is. In this case, the enemy is the Zeromus boss. That being said, we still see that Big Bang come out pretty quick. Cecil is zerked up, Crystal Sword Avenger. The nukes are being bounced as well. Sid is bopping things with a hammer. That is going to be a big difference that we're seeing here with Aerith once they get into their Z fight, is there will be no Sid hammer. There will probably not be any reflected spells, and likely 3 Zerkers. We'll see though. But Crispy getting 10,000 or 9 quad 9s out of that nuke there. Sid and Cecil are now zerked. The nukes are still flying. I don't think anybody but maybe Fu can die here. We could also potentially even get a really swaggy little skip here of the refill if the nukes are timed correctly or the final hit melee. But looks like we just got the refill there on Sid's swing, so that is going to put us halfway through the fight. There's about 60,000 HP left of Zeromus. As the refill is done, that happens around the 45,000 mark. So I think, despite their best efforts, Aerith is not going to be able to overcome the adamant armor difference that Kryspyslick was able to build up. But we'll see. Anything can happen. Unlikely that it happened. Anything could potentially. But
Yep, and I want to go ahead and point out for those who don't know, and what Possum is referencing when he says hit point refill. So the game was coded in such a fact that Zeromus can't actually have 110,000 or 130,000 health. So he actually has a health pool of 65,000. But once you reach a certain threshold, the game script kicks in and refills, quote unquote, his health to another 65,000. So that's why if you see some runners do purely spell reflex, they can just do that without Zeromus being triggered. That doesn't matter because Zeromus is down.
yeah, GG to Kryspyslick, our winner this evening, finishing in an official time of 2:06.18, getting the victory for a Big Trouble in Little Kaipo. I believe that does move Big Trouble in Little Kaipo to 1-0 this week. This was, I believe, the first race between these two teams. And honestly, what a race it was. We'll see if we can get Crispy in for an interview.
That being, while we're waiting on an update, one way or the other, we see Aerith in that fight with Z, getting a big bang. Probably gonna shrug it off, very much so. I mean, with this group comp and nerfing the big bang, everyone's just gonna look at it and laugh a little as they're getting tickled by Aerith going ahead and zerking up all of their characters. Fusoya slinging some spells. Very much, yes, get your GGs out for Kryspyslick. Let me take a look here.
All right, and that dinging in our ears, I believe, does mean we are now joined by our winner this evening. Kryspyslick, GGs to you.
Thank you. GG's to everybody. I had a blast on this one.
I'm going to start out, hot and heavy with the questions for you. I got two big ones. The first is, how much do you like an early adamant?
I loved it, but I was questionable on who to equip it to, and finally I just decided to let Rydia blow things up.
Definitely makes a lot of sense. We saw you put that adamant armor to great use, especially on that Rydia. And my second question is, you had done a lot of character hunting. How happy and or sad were you when you got your Cecil about the hour 15-minute mark? Was that a sense of overjoyment because you had the guy and you already had a Excal and Avenger, or were you scared because you had that dwarf check available for a while, or both?
Well, I was a little bit nervous, but since I hadn't done my grind yet, I figured it wasn't going to cost me too much time, and again, having an Excal and an Avenger on him just made it worth it.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. That logic behind it. Before I ask any more questions, Blue, you got anything for our winner this evening, Crispies?
Well, I mean, first off, congratulations, GG. When you were up on the moon, we saw that Luca key at Mura, was there ever a thought to just, go and do Luca, or what was the thought process behind just kind of save scumming and going and getting what ended up being the Twin Harp?
Well, I was still hunting for the Babel Gauntlet, so I was really just trying to avoid Babel. And that wasn't happening. Once I finished the moon, I knew where the gauntlet had to be, or I was guessing at where it was. And then I knew the pass was going to be in the Twin Harp Cave, so I went right there. And yeah, when I got to the point where I cleared the moon and I still had 3 objectives to go, I thought I was playing for second at that point.
We'll say you ran a really efficient race overall. Definitely made some choices that worked out in your favor. One of those I wanted to talk about was your decision, to grind fully to get Rydia to nuke and Rosa to white, and then building off of that to then take out the Feymark before heading moonward. Was there ever a thought to skipping that Feymark because of potentially how scary it could be, even with all your power and all the the adamant armor, etc.?
Well, I figured if I was going to take the Feymarks before going to the moon, I was going to need all the power I could get. Kainazo in any tough spot, worries me a little bit, and I believe that's where he was at. kind of a blur at the moment, but I knew when I saw them, I knew they were going to be a little bit tough, so I just wanted to get the grinding done with. And I was hoping the Fey March might have the couple of the missing items, so I could just boss hunt the moon for the Fabo Gauntlet. That didn't work out that way.
Well, one thing that did work out, though, is you ended up getting the Adamant Rock from Ogopogo, which gave you a Thor Hammer for Sid. That was another thing that you had over your opponent. You actually got the Thor Hammer, and they did not, and you had that early Adamant armor that they didn't have. So those two things made a world of difference for you, allowed you to clear more checks in the end as well. You did more of the game, but you had the better tools to do so as well. So this overall was a heck of a run. Definitely would recommend watching it back as well.
Oh, thank you. Yes. I look forward to looking back at that. Honestly, I felt, the beginning of the game, I felt I ran really well. And then it was toward the middle to the late of the game that I kind of went down a rabbit hole, and I should have done my grind up on the giant, but we always second guess ourselves.
Hindsight is 2020, as they say. Well, I did want to also commend you. I know this is your first tournament, or I believe it's your first tournament anyway, and this moves your record for Big Trouble Little Kaipo, your individual record, to 2-2, which I believe ranking yourself as the C tier player in the group, or being placed there, for your first tournament to be kind of punching up a little bit, if you will, and to come out 2-2 after 4 weeks is nothing short of incredible in this community with how good everyone is. So, just nothing but kind words from this end for you.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, the whole community has been great. Anytime I've had questions, even Aerith this week, we were talking about, I was trying to set up a giant grind because, setting it up outside of Baron is not something I've practiced with. So that they had some good advice for me prior to the match.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. The camaraderie and all of that is part of the team environment. So even if it might be across the aisle to the other team, that's still awesome to hear.
Like I said, it's been a great community. I love being a part of it.
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you. Go ahead, Blue. Sorry.
Oh, no, totally fine, totally fine. I was just going to ask, to kind of piggyback off of one of Possum's questions, what are your thoughts, given that this is your first tournament, and that the Eblan Elixir, or Moonveil mixer, mixing up my words, given that the Moonveil mixer is a collection of previous tournament flag sets, what are your thoughts and opinions on it?
It's nice to get back to the Z fights for one. I've been practicing a lot of, usually trying to get, 2 runs in a night when I get off work, or if the kids will let me. And, I think the combination of the chest hunting and the power in the beginning when we were running the previous set, the potion mixer, and then this one, I think it really helps kind of build everyone's skills, especially the newer players.
I definitely agree with those words. It's like Possum said, y'all ran a great race, and Possum, you got any other questions?
No questions. Just want to make sure that you have some time to settle down before your night may end, whatever time zone you are in, Crispy. And just once again, GG's, and go enjoy that victory.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And that was our winner this evening, Kryspyslick, in a time of 2:06.18. And we are now joined by Aerith, our second place finisher this evening, 2:09.15 officially. GG's to you, Aerith.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm
Interesting ending.
Yeah, y'all had a seed.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I left the moon without checking the spot that wound up being go mode, thinking like, okay, I'm going to gamble on Harp be in go mode, and then I'm done. And as I was heading back to Earth, the thought occurred to me, like, if this is exactly pass, I'm going to feel really awful. And then it was pass, and go mode was the boss that I skipped. So that was silly. But otherwise, yeah, this was quite the seed.
I will say, given your position and what you had seen and not seen yet in that seed, I actually agreed with your decision to leave the moon and chase the heart. Because at that point, you were 2 directions from go mode, needing either the adamant rock or the Luca key. So, knowing that you had what I think were 4 total checks left, maybe 5, and batting about 40% to hit that could save you from having to do any of the Fey March and 2 moon spots. For what it's worth, I agreed with that decision wholeheartedly. So I would not beat yourself up on that whatsoever. Also worth noting, you were down an adamant armor for about an hour and a half of that seed, and to make it as close as you did is extremely commendable. You also were down the forge, which Sid got a Thor hammer from. So
that like been pretty good.
For all of the things that kind of went against you, the traditional rando gonna rando thing, like to be within 3 minutes with all of that going against you, I think is really a testament to your ability as a runner. There are things such as good losses in this game. This really showed your mettle and your skill. I know that it might not feel great right now, but I promise you, it was a heck of a race to watch for both of y'all.
I really feel good about how I ran this one, and it's kind of unfortunate that the literal gamble I made didn't pay off. But at the same time, like, I had a lot of fun. There's a lot of really goofy stuff that happened, like a grimoire giving me exactly what I needed. I'm glad I remembered to mute my mic, because boy, I was laughing really hard.
We called that out. That was exciting. Just hit Indra forehead.
Yes. Also, I'd like to congratulate all gender on learning Medio. I forgot that piece of dialogue was going to happen. But no, like, I'm really proud of how I ran the seed, and needing to make it through Pale Dim with the resources that I had on hand. I was like, oh, this is going to be pretty ugly. And like leveraging the vampires, those 2 sirens, getting me just enough levels for Berserk on my white mages. All these just like little pieces that came together really perfectly to get me over the hump, considering also like Pooh working with me and knowing Float was also really nice. I'm really proud of how I ran this one, even if it didn't work out at the end there.
Yeah, and I mean, it does bring you to 2-2, which is still, honestly a great record with how good everybody is in, the tournament as a community as a whole. 2-2 overall, nothing to be ashamed of whatsoever. As far as your team is concerned, if I'm not mistaken, I think your team currently is 1-3, but I know that you've been doing a good bit of work, keeping the team competitive, putting up a very good personal record. So how have you been enjoying the team concept and the team format so far?
I've really had a lot of fun with it. I really lean into like the community aspect of FreeN is a big part of why I keep playing and keep coming back. I haven't been in a tournament since CZ3, I think, but the format really intrigued me. The team thing is really fun. We try to keep our team spirit really high. And also, I saw K-Trap in the Potion Party section and said, I need to do this. Those seeds are so wacky. I enjoyed so much. So I've been having a lot of fun. It really has been a blast. We really keep things positive, and I'm really happy with the team that I have.
Excellent. Always glad to hear that. And, welcome back. CZ3 was my first tournament. So It's nice to see it all come kind of full circle. Someone coming back from what I consider the past, what honestly was only just a couple years ago.
I mean, what is time, really?
Exactly, just a silly fourth dimension or something. Blue, before we let Aerith go, and apologies for keeping you so long, Aerith. Blue, do you have any questions for Aerith?
All right, let me just a couple of half dozen questions. So I want to commend, like, very much to piggyback off of what Possum was commenting on and asking questions about. I mean, a heck of a run from the booth. I highly recommend watching the VOD back. First from the Grimoire summon being a wizard, I highly approve. To Sid pulling out the clutch victory with the vampires, highly commended there. When you got not so much Fusoya, but when you saw that Cecil come in, did the thought ever come to mind to maybe to go check Eblan Castle, or to maybe try and find something a little stronger than, like, we know you got the X-Cal, but when you got the Cecil, did the thought come to mind to go back and check Eblan for anything?
Light Sword and Avenger is already pretty good. And also it being May the 4th, I thought it was very appropriate to rock the lightsaber.
Which we commented on.
So I was happy with what I had, and I also figured at that point, like, that was my play for 10 items. I knew I was going to check Last Arm Chest just to try to spike something. And I also knew, or kind of figured, like, I'm going to have to do a lot of checks after this. I think at that point, the only thing I knew I had access to was Giant in terms of objectives. So I knew, I kind of figured, like, there was a lot of seed left. So I was probably going to stumble onto something. And yeah, like, lightsaber's pretty good, considering I had a strength ring already at that point and a headband, I think. Like, this flag set, that's about as reasonably good as you can expect. I mean, spiking the Zeus Gauntlet and Crystal Sword was hilarious.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and honestly, just an incredible race. It was, I like, very much to like, you just recently coming back to Freehan. I personally am back recently to doing commentary, and I am honored to have done commentary for the run that included you and Kryspyslick. Thank you for being here. Thank you for racing within this league.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. The community is super positive and super welcoming. So, this really is a blast. I really enjoy doing it. And thank you, to the Restream team, to the admins, to the commentary team. It takes a lot of effort to get this up and running, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, as always, we definitely appreciate you as a runner as well. There'd be nothing to talk about if the fine folks like yourself weren't there to let us talk about your excellent racing. So thank you for putting on one heck of a show with Kryspyslick tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy watching this VOD back, mostly for the shenanigans, but also to see. I'm assuming there's some pretty serious divergence. I mean, especially once you get adamant armor, it's like, just do everything.
Yeah, there definitely was some divergence. I think you'll enjoy watching it back. Hopefully enjoy what we have to say about it, and also, enjoy your good play as well along the way.
Yeah, well, again, yeah, GG's to Kryspyslick, and congrats on the win. And, good night, y'all.
Good night.
Have a good night. Thank you again, Aerith. GG's.
All right, so that's it, right? We all get to go home. Show's over.
I think we're already home, Blue. For Enterprises.
You're not my supervisor.
Okay.
Wait, hang on. You are an admin. So I guess that hierarchy counts?
I'm not a restream lead. I'm not your supervisor.
Fair. So, Possum, where are we sending the fine folks viewing this fine race tonight?
I don't know. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
We're going to send
Terrible.
everybody over to a fantastic race between John Burkhead and Dr. Cossack, going to be doing battle, I think already in the midst of doing battle for their respective teams. Two very, very good runners. So definitely going to be some fantastic events happening there. Make sure to stay tuned. Tomorrow there will be a number of races happening as well. Definitely want to be around for that. Going to be a lot of excellent Free Enterprise action then also. But for Scala Kitty behind the scenes, Scarcer pushing the buttons, our runners Aerith and Kryspyslick, who put on a heck of a show for you. Blue Wizard, the wizard himself of commentary and making people laugh. Always a pleasure, Blue, to do this with you. As we go over there, though, folks, please remember, no spoilers, or you will get the bonk. Everybody have a fantastic rest of your time zone.
And then thanks to the Possum Orpheus for jumping in last second.